there is a void. There is a coexistence of organized crime and political corruption. And what allows both to flourish is actually lack of independent judiciary and the rule of law. That women and girls from the United States, Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and other parts of Eastern Europe are subjected to sex trafficking in Croatia. That the children are exploited in prostitution on the Adriatic coast, particularly during the peak tourist season. There are 20 billion per year of heroin trade to the Balkans. Albanian, Pakistani, and Turkish origin criminal groups dominate the trafficking in heroin. That's also from the Europol report. And then we know that 75% of the world's opium is produced in Afghanistan. We have to remind ourselves that while American soldiers were dying in Afghanistan, the Balkan route was flourishing, bringing proceeds of crime to terrorist groups. And we also saw reports that Hezbollah and Al-Qaeda are also financed by the proceeds from drug trafficking. And 75% of heroin is obviously originating in Afghanistan. So we see that when we come to the point who is going to address these issues, just to have a little picture of what is going on with political figures in the region. Member of European Parliament, Strasser, who was Austria's former interior minister. Interior minister in Austria means police minister. And national security, responsible for national security, he accepted offers up to $100,000 in exchange to water down financial regulation laws. There's former Austria's finance minister Grasser, who received 450,000 bribe from Novomatic to reform gambling law in Austria. There is EU Commissioner, current EU Commissioner for Regional Policy from Austria, who is responsible for the EU funds disbursement. This is the second largest budget they have after agriculture at the EU level. Johannes Hahn, he was CEO of Novomatic. And I would like to also remind you that a US State Department did flag Novomatic for casinos in Paraguay, Peru, and South Africa, countries where they operate were tagged by the US as money laundering conduits for criminal bosses and drug barons. So you have Latin America, you have Montenegro, you have the Balkan route, you have heroin trafficking, you have cocaine trafficking coming from Latin America. It is something, it's mind-boggling, and we need to address these issues. So we look again at the region. We have, for example, Custom Chief of Croatia, HDZ. He was jailed for building party slush funds. He was responsible for policing the borders. And it's interesting to mention that former Romania's Prime Minister, former Croatia's Prime Minister, Slovenia's Prime Minister are jailed, all three jailed for corruption, with the cases coming, triggered from abroad. So it wasn't really initiated from within, I would say. And then we have Montenegro's Prime Minister Đukanović, who is under diplomatic immunity. We have U.S. Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation in July 2008. In its report, actually, I quote, said that LGT is a leading Liechtenstein financial institution that is owned by and financially benefits the Liechtenstein royal family. And they are advising U.S. clients to open accounts in the name of Liechtenstein foundations to hide their beneficial ownership of the account assets and establish transfer corporation to disguise asset transfers to and from LGT accounts. And actually, they conclude that LGT, which is owned by royal family, enabled LGT clients to use the bank services to evade U.S. taxes, dodge creditors, and ignore court orders. So U.S. Senate obviously initiated a very important thing to start dealing with money laundering with Liechtenstein, which is very connected to the region. The timeline of Hypo Bank shows that there is a much larger problem, that we have not just Austria's banking institutions to deal with, but also Liechtenstein's institution. On the other side, when we look at the European Union and what we can expect from European Union, Roger Helmer, member of European Parliament from UK, asked of European Commission. His question was about money laundering connected to Hypo Alpe Adria and the divestment of that real estate arm that I mentioned to you. And practically, the European Commission just says that the Commission has no competence to investigate schemes such as those described by the honorable member. This is the responsibility of the relevant national authorities and ultimately of national courts. But if you remember that if national authorities have individuals that are taking bribes, and if those individuals are involved in border policing, in Interior Department, which is a police department, national security, if those individuals are prime ministers, how can we expect from national authorities to resolve any of these cases? There was another question that Roger Helmer, member of European Parliament from UK, asked of European Commission, asking actually specifically about Liechtenstein and about the fact that at the time of the banks being sold to Bayerische Landesbank, which is a German bank, the accounts of corrupt politicians and their private partners in crime were sheltered in Liechtenstein's bank, taken over by Prince Michael von Liechtenstein. How can that happen? German taxpayers were bailing out the bank. Austrian taxpayers just were approved by European Commission to be able to bail the bank by additional $8 billion euros, while 8 billion euros are unaccounted for in the whole region of Southeast Europe, and this is not being investigated. So Roger Helmer asked the question again of European Commission, and we got an easy answer. They say, on the question of whether the Commission is aware of the Croatian authorities requesting information from the Liechtenstein authorities, the Commission recalls that this is a matter for the relevant Croatian authorities. The Commission cannot intervene in any such procedures. It's not just laundering money that belongs to the politicians that were corrupt, that we have crony capitalism, but we have a Balkan route. We have trafficking in humans, organs, arms trafficking, and drug trafficking going through the region. And we have organized crime coexisting with political corruption in the region. And what allows both to flourish is the lack of rule of law, a lack of independent judiciary. We cannot deal with these issues from within. Just a few items, actually, a few things about Croatia. Croatia has fraudulent elections, which was actually admitted by the government. There were 1 million illegal votes for a country of 4 million people. That means that half of the parliament could have been voted in based on non-existent votes. Balkan criminals possessing Croatian passports. Practically, in 2012, there was a group of criminals, they say, belonging to a Balkan organized crime, were arrested in Spain. And they were found to have all Croatian passports. So the investigations led directly to the Ministry of Interior of Croatia, and the track record of sale of these passports since 2006, no high-level officials was held responsible. We need to establish the rule of law and independent judiciary in Croatia, in the region of Southeast Europe, and it won't happen from within. We see that the European Union doesn't have a muscle at this stage to trigger investigations, to be able to impose foreign assistance in a way. So I believe that we need to look up to also American leadership to see how we can have visiting judges and visiting prosecutors come to Croatia to help honest judges that are in the system, that do not get the cases, that are threatened, that are afraid actually to come out, to be able to establish gradually with new generation of law graduates that will see actually in judicially an honest profession, an honest calling, to be able to gradually establish the rule of law and independent judiciary in Croatia. Thank you so much for your attention.